In this video, I've compiled a list of 7 of the best financial habits connected to the Chinese culture that can not only help you save your money, but also grow your wealth. Now, this is coming mostly from my experience and anecdotes of being Chinese, as well as talking to some of my Chinese friends and seeing if they agree with my list. So keep in mind that I am making some generalizations here, and there are always going to be some people that are exceptions and don't have these habits, but for the most part, I find them to be true. If you resonate with any of the habits that we mentioned today, please let me know in the comments, and let's get started with habit number 1, which is that we take pride in saving money. People are always shocked to find out that the gross savings rate in China is 46% as of the end of 2022. That means for every $100 that a business or a person makes in China, they're saving roughly 46% or $46 of it. And in doing research for this video, it seems that there are a couple of reasons for this cultural identity of saving money. The first is that some people are going to point towards Confucian values. So Confucius was a philosopher back in the day in Chinese culture who had a set of guidelines on how to live life. Now, while the values weren't explicitly about saving money, a lot of the values had to do with righteousness, being responsible, and keeping the harmony. And so a lot of that does lend itself to financial stability as well as saving money. Even China's World Bank leader has noted that Chinese people have developed a tradition of savings since ancient times, and he actually points to Confucianism as a large part of that. The second reason why it's so ingrained in culture is that in 1978, the Chinese government started to promote aggressive saving and investing as the economy tried to move away from Maoism into more of one that would accept global trade as well as foreign investment. It was a way for citizens to not only help with economic growth, but also economic stability as well. As a result, the entire nation has a strong culture of saving money, and whenever they do earn some money, they try to live off a very small percentage of it. In one of my popular videos, I told you that my dad had a popular rule that he liked to prescribe to, which was called the 10-to-1 rule, which means that for every $10 that he earned, he tried to live off of one single dollar. Now, while in reality that actually never happened, he'd often have to spend 6, 7, 8, or even 9 of his $10 to make ends meet, the idea was still there. He knew that if he strived to live off of $1 for every $10 that he earned, that even if he did do a lot worse than what he was trying for, he would still be better off than most people. It's kind of like that saying, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. It was kind of the same way with his saving money. So in your life, I would encourage you to save more of your money and take pride in saving that money, because if you can save that difference and invest that difference, which will hopefully compound into more wealth. All right, money habit number 2 is that the Chinese like to prioritize paying for things in cash. Now, this doesn't mean that the Chinese are physically buying things in cash. Like, they're not going to show up to a car dealership with a bunch of $1 bills and try to buy a car like Mr. Beast would. Rather, the lesson here is that they're not financing bigger purchases like cars, and then for normal everyday purchases, they're not using a credit card. In China, I feel like there's an aversion to buying things on credit or by using debt. Rather, they're only trying to buy things that they can afford with the money that they do have. Now, according to Lisa Chow in China, quote, people use cash 95% of the time. They'll buy their plane tickets in cash and they'll pay their rent in cash. Compare that to someone in the United States who only uses cash to pay for things about 1/3 of the time. And I think a huge reason this is happening is that Chinese people don't view debt in a very positive light. So sometimes it's often shameful to take on debt, even if it is good debt, like taking on a mortgage. In fact, a story that I hear from my own family and their dealings with business is that while debt can be a huge lever to amass wealth, there's also a huge lever to the downside when things don't go your way. Famously, one of my dad's best friends had a huge commercial real estate business back in the 70s and 80s, but he was levered up to the max, aka he had a lot of loans out for the properties that he did own. Now, when interest rates all of a sudden shot up in that 2 to 3 year period in the early 80s, he basically became underwater on all of his properties, and he had to declare bankruptcy at the age of 50. Ask any Chinese person, and there's usually some sort of cautionary tale that's told in their family about how debt is the devil. And because Chinese people value peace for the most part, I would say they try to avoid debt at all costs because of all the extra headaches that it can cause. Lastly, in Chinese culture, having cash signifies your wealth, so having cash on hand is going to be more meaningful than carrying a lot of debt. So if you can pay for things in cash and avoid carrying a balance, you're going to live a much more peaceful life and probably grow your wealth a lot faster. Not to mention that cash also gives you leverage when it comes to negotiating, which is another future point that we're going to talk about in this video just a little bit later. All right, money habit number 3 of the Chinese is that they frequently eat at home. In fact, we believe eating good food with your loved ones can bring more harmony and closeness with your family. Now, growing up, I ate most of my meals at home. In fact, we would go off in stretches of 2 or even 3 weeks before we even went out to dinner. Now, going out to dinner when I was the age of 8, I do remember, because we ate at home so much, whenever we did go out for dinner, I would actually have a lot of anxiety around going out for dinner because it was just something that we never used to do. And a huge side benefit of eating at home all the time is that we saved a lot of money. For most households in America, food is going to be the third most largest expense behind transportation as well as housing. And those first two categories, transportation and housing, are really hard to cut back spending on, but food is one that we have a lot of control over. A recent survey of 2,000 Americans found that 2 in 3 Americans feel guilty when dining out, and that the average person spends more than $2,500 per year on eating out alone. And even that number seems conservative to me, because if you live on the coast, food and cost of living is just getting more and more expensive. Here in San Francisco, an entree at a restaurant is around $25 to $30 whenever I'm looking at the menu, and that doesn't include the drinks, the appetizers, the tax, and the tip. I did the math, and if you're spending $30 each time you eat out, and you eat out every 1 out of every 4 or 5 days, that equals $2,500 a year in eating out. So if you're eating out more often than 1 out of every 4 or 1 out of every 5 days, or if you're spending more money whenever you eat out, then that $2,500 number that the average American spends is going to be really easy to surpass. So the takeaway of money habit number 3 here is to be more conscious of your spending on your food, especially when it comes to eating out. Chinese money habit number 4 is to never turn on the AC or the heater, because if it's cold, you just put on layers. All right, guys, that was just a joke. It's just for the video. It's actually not true. Well, it is kind of true. If you are Chinese, you would probably understand, but the real Chinese money habit number 4 today is to practice frugal wealth. That's the concept where if you start to earn more money, you're still practicing frugality and you're still living within your means, and you're not really spending on things that you don't value. And if you're able to do this, there's no doubt in my mind that your wealth will accumulate over time. When it comes to frugal wealth, a big tip that I have for you guys is to only spend money when it's in alignment with the things that you value. For example, if you value the health of your body and staying fit, you might actually opt for that ergonomic chair or that really nice mattress that's going to keep you nice and refreshed. You're probably not spending too much money elsewhere in your life, and you're buying things out of necessity rather than what you desire. Now, to clarify, this doesn't mean that you're cheap. Rather, it's more about intentionality about what you're spending your money on. According to Confucius, again, he said, quote, "If I have coarse grain to eat, cold water to drink, and my bended arm for a pillow, there is joy to be found in these things." In other words, there's a huge emphasis and value on the simplicity of living. So be grateful for the things that you have, live a simple life, because living a simple life will lead to a lot more peace of mind. And when you have peace of mind, it's easy to be frugal and therefore build your wealth, because you're not really focused on the things that you don't really need. Chinese money habit number 5 today is to always negotiate, especially when it comes to buying things. So maybe you've heard this before, but in China, it's pretty common to do some haggling when it comes to buying things on the street or buying things in a local market. You probably wouldn't do it at a high-end luxury store, but for most normal everyday transactions, you can haggle a little bit. To the Chinese, a price is simply arbitrary and always open for interpretation, and they're usually trying to knock down the price by haggling with the vendor or the store owner that owns the store. If you ever visit a market in China, you will probably have to start your negotiations at 50% off the price that they're asking for, because the vendors know that you're gonna haggle, so they're baking that price and that margin into their list price. At these local markets and mom and pop stores, it's almost expected that you're going to haggle, and it's almost like a sport to them. But this concept of negotiating and haggling also applies to bigger purchases as well. So the Chinese, they really value a super good deal. Now, when it comes to buying a home, for example, you might actually get a lowball offer from a Chinese client because they're just trying to get the best deal as possible, or they're trying to use cash as leverage to, increase their negotiating power within the deal itself. Heck, they might even ask for the furniture to be thrown in with the house just so that they can get the best value possible. These types of negotiations are a lot less common in America, but I think that the principle still applies here, which is you're trying to get the most value out of your dollar that you can, and it's not shameful to do so. To the Chinese, haggling is simply a business. It's not a reflection of the buyer or seller in any way. In America, you can actually haggle a lot more than you think. You probably can't do it at a department store like Bloomingdale's or Nordstrom's. Like, you can't just go in there and be like, I want to pay $50 for these New Balances. That's probably not going to fly. But if you you are going to a smaller store or a mom and pop store, then haggling is going to be at the discretion of the store owner. All right, the sixth Chinese money habit today is not really so much a habit, but rather a trend, and that is that the Chinese parents will want their kids to get a career that has a high floor salary. What I mean is that they usually like to choose careers that have a sizable base salary, for example, doctors, lawyers, accountants, or engineers. While that may sound stereotypical, when you realize what money means to the Chinese people, then it starts to make a lot of sense. In Chinese culture, you're actually taught from a really young age that money has significant meaning, and it's also virtuous to earn money and save it. Kids even get money in red envelopes for Chinese New Year as well as birthdays. It's known as lucky money, and so it's kind of no wonder that the Chinese love money. It's kind of ingrained at you at a young age. Because of this, in Chinese culture, I feel like status and money are pretty interconnected, so it's no wonder that the parents want their children to have the best careers possible with a high floor salary. Another reason why they want their kids to be successful and earn a lot of money is that usually the kid is the caretaker for the parent whenever the parent gets older. So yeah, I feel like there is a lot of pressure for the Chinese younger adults or younger kids to get good jobs and also have a job that is respectable in society and among the parents' friends. So I think I experienced a little bit of this growing up. My parents weren't really strict in telling me that I had to be a doctor or a lawyer, but they definitely wanted me to be successful. They definitely encouraged me to do things like business and study finance in college, which I did. And then after college, when I graduated, I definitely wanted to try at least a finance job just to try it out. It turns out that being an entrepreneur and a YouTuber is way more fun than doing whatever jobs that I did before. And it's still respectable within the Chinese community. In fact, my parents are quite proud of me and they often share my videos with their friends. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for watching and subscribing. It means a lot to me as well as my parents and my family. All right, the seventh Chinese money habit today that we're going to talk about is being transparent with money. If you talk to a Chinese person and you ask about their income or their career, they're probably going to give you a pretty straight answer. I think having this culture of openness within the Chinese community is a really good thing because it helps foster these conversations that might be difficult to have in other places. It can help you understand if you're getting overpaid, underpaid, or fairly paid for the job that you're working for, and probably can help you inspire you perhaps to even ask for a raise if you are getting underpaid. Salary transparency across America is becoming more prevalent, which I think is overall a really good thing. Having transparency should level the field no matter what, which is overall that it's better for everybody involved. Your friends and coworkers being transparent about where they're putting their savings in can actually be a really good thing, because if you talk to them and they're saying, oh, I'm putting money in my 401k or my IRA, that might inspire you to do the same thing as well. Therefore, you're probably making better decisions and more informed decisions about your own money, and probably doing your own research when it comes to money, just because your other coworkers and friends are talking about it. Because money seems like such a taboo topic in America, if we're able to talk about it openly, we can share our strategies for investing and savings. I think as a society, we're gonna get way more money or just earn way more money in our lifetimes, and also probably be a lot wealthier. All right, guys, which was your favorite money habit of today's video? Let me know in the comments, and also drop a like on this video if you got some value. I'll leave my other video up right here, which is the Chinese secret to saving money. And if you liked this video, you're gonna get a lot of value out of that one. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. 再见.